Hello, and welcome to Recapping with Delora
and Ashley.
Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Recapping Podcast.
Also, rate, review, and subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast platform. We're on all the things.
We want to hear your thoughts on the movies and shows we review.
Leave us a comment on Apple Podcasts or our YouTube channel, and we will read them during the show.
Or reach out to us on social media. We love talking all things entertainment and pop culture with you.
Thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you. Dearest Rita, Ashley, the time has come. We are going to talk about Bridgerton season 3, part 1. I'm just going to put that disclaimer because
we haven't done a part 1 and a part 2 in a long time.
We did it for the first season and we did one sitting for season 2 in Queen Charlotte. So we are just going to be like Netflix and, have y'all waiting for more. As I mentioned, we are talking about Bridgerton, one of the top shows on Netflix, a Shondaland production. It is a historical drama. We're going to talk about 4 episodes rated MA. It premiered May 16th, 2024. Here's a quick summary. During the Regency era in England, 8 close-knit siblings of the powerful Bridgerton house attempt to find love. Here's the cast. We have Nicola Coughlan as Penelope Featherington. She did a phenomenal job having the limelight on her this season. She's a star, and I need for her to be in many more romantic leads. You know what I'm saying, Ashley?
Absolutely. Especially, I want her to be able to be blonde and in her
full element. Because she was serving during this press tour. The looks, I love this for her. Luke Newton as Colin Bridgerton. We have Luke Thompson as Benedict Bridgerton, the star of season 4. We have Claudia Jessie as Eloise, Ruth Gemmell as Violet, Mama Bridgerton, Polly Walker as Patricia Featherington, Julie Andrews as Lady Whistletown, Adjoa Ando as Lady Agatha Danbury. We have Golda Rostavel as Queen Charlotte, Jessica Madsen as Cressida, Hannah Dobb as Francesca Bridgerton, and Victor Ali as Lord John Sterling. Y'all, this is a huge cast. This is all I have for today. We'll highlight more later. This show was created by Shonda Rhimes and based off of the best-selling books by Julia Quinn. Yeah, let's go into some of these ratings. Rotten Tomatoes critics gave this season 88%. The audience score was 77%, and Google users is for the entire series, and it was 94%. Ashley, what's your grade for Bridgerton season 3, part 1?
I'm gonna have to give it like B minus. I think this first half, I was trying to see if the chemistry was chemistrying. I was trying to see if I was really going to enjoy this focus on Polin, however we want to say it. And I felt like it got very convoluted. I think one of my biggest things was whose season is this actually when we get into it. So it's a B minus for me. What about for you?
If you are a regular listener, Bridgerton is like my Super Bowl. I legit bought Bridgerton themed items from Target this year. That's how committed I was. I was excited. This was my favorite book out of the entire series of 8 books. And I had great hesitation going into the season. And so my grade is a B minus for part 1. And to your point, Ashley, there were a lot of missed opportunities on focusing on the actual couple, and we'll talk about it. So with that being said, this is a spoiler alert. It's a new social season at the time, and the search for the new diamond and the prize bachelor has begun, Ashley. There are 2 Bridgerton daughters on the marriage mart, and Colin is the most eligible bachelor. Penelope has resigned to being a spinster. The Moonridges are moving on up. Benedict is living his best life. Cantony, which is Catherine and Anthony, are honeymooners. The rift between Eloise and Penelope deepens with the unsuspected relationship between Eloise and Cressida. The Feathertons are dealing with the fallout of the death of their father and the long lost cousin. Mama Bridgerton might get some action getting her garden tended to. And of course, we have the long-awaited friends to lovers, the romance between Colin and Penelope. There are too many storylines, Ashley.
I was going to say, just you naming all of that. Again, whose season is this really? You know what I thought of when I was just watching this afternoon was, this is what it's like to be not the first or second sibling right here, right? Because it ain't just about you, because your older siblings, it was about them. And now it's like, guess what? It's about you plus me plus my brother plus, you know what I'm saying? Like now it's the whole family's turn as we go down. So you got to create everybody's story gets pushed into it with you. That's literally what I was thinking. Because doesn't it feel like that?
Well said, Ashley. Well said. You know, I being the oldest, there are more pictures of me than there are of my sister.
Exactly.
I feel so bad, but it's like, was the energy gone? Like, did it skip their minds? Like, you just have these questions, right?
They were like, been there, done that. Guess what, kid? You're number 2.
But with that being said, also, Ashley, who were you excited to see this season?
I can't say I was excited to see anyone in particular, but I was curious to see what was going on with Cantony, you know, now that we're in the honeymoon phase and all of that. I really wanted to see her sister. I was like, where's Edwina?
Yep.
I wanted to see, coming off of Queen Charlotte, was any of that backstory going to be incorporated in any changes that actress made and decisions that actress made in this season? I was curious about that. Yeah. And then I think just in totality, right? Again, what was this going to look like? Because I didn't read the books like you did, and I didn't know what to expect from this Pollen romance, because I've said it and I'll say it again. They seem like the most vanilla possible coupling coming together that I could imagine, not just because they're both white, but because they both are rather background characters so far.
Yes.
And so, I mean, obviously we know that Penelope is Lady Whistledown already, but still, like, it's not the same level of like main character energy that we've had from the Bridgerton siblings that have preceded.
Yeah, I agree. I have to say, I was looking forward to this particular season because, again, speaking to the book, wanted to see how that would translate to the show. I think it's interesting. I was looking at this article from People. It says, Julia Quinn was excited. Bridgerton season 3 quotes dialogue from the book, finds out which line surprised her. So this season actually incorporated a lot more dialogue from the actual book. That was an interesting choice. But we also have a brand new showrunner than before as well. And so that felt like a choice. Previously, the showrunner was Chris Van Dusen, and Jess Brownell is the new showrunner for season 3. And so obviously switching over the keys of power, there were going to be some significant choices. And I did feel like this season felt different, Ashley, compared to the previous two. It was in several ways, right? Like, so season 3 was also interesting because we already understand this world. We understand that there are going to be beautiful gowns. Shout out to Aretha Franklin's famous famous quote, beautiful gowns. There's going to be pop culture songs translated to stream music, and there's going to be grand heart gestures as well as sex. So I felt like this season was a little bit more tongue in cheek when it came to its costumes, makeup. I feel like there were more bolder choices that we know did not happen during Regency era Britain. Speaking to anything Cressida had on, Queen Charlotte's wigs.
The one that had the lights going in and stuff, I'm like, girl.
The swan, the swan swimming in the lake.
My gosh.
It was doing the most, Ashley, for me. But did you feel like there was a difference between this season compared to the other two?
Again, I think some of the biggest differences were the fact that it felt like we're following so many characters' storylines instead of having this focus. So it felt scattered, yes. Which affected like the pacing for me and affected my attention span for who's doing what and when and why and all those things. And definitely less like romance, I guess maybe is the way to say it. Like I felt less of a pull and attraction the way that I have with Cantony and with season 1 with, you know, that was season 1 was the one that even between that one and Cantony season, I was locked in. You know what I mean? Like, because I didn't know what to expect. And Daphne was the first Bridgerton out the gate. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's definitely a difference. But for me, as I've said many times, coming from Queen Charlotte, I just feel like this series no longer stood a chance.
Well, I think to your point, two things are important to point out. One, enemies to lovers is God tier level trope for me. Like, I didn't realize how much I loved it until I got into my fiction era. You know what I mean? But
it's the passion
done right. Yeah, done right. Oh my gosh! And then I'm also a lover of forbidden love too, and that's a whole nother conversation. And then 2, those other relationships are pretty toxic.
You think Cantony was toxic?
Girl, he was married to her sister.
I was going to say, besides the fact they were doing this behind her sister's back, which honestly, I still don't like. I've said this. I don't like the stories where it's becoming between siblings. That's a bridge too far for me. But you're right. I forgot about that aspect for 2 seconds. But yeah, I think enemies to lovers is just, it's spicier, right? It's like, it's passion, it's heat, it's the, where you think you going, come back here, girl. You know, it's those type of moments.
And then with season
this is so
1,
vanilla.
Well, okay, I don't hate friends to lovers because obviously I'm a fan of it personally. But I think what this season failed to do was, I feel like they have to realize waiting 2 years in between each season, people are going to forget some things. And they really started off where they left off with our understanding of Penelope and Colin's relationship. And so what I mean by that is, for Penelope, Colin was unrequited love, right? He was oblivious, doing his own thing, crushing on people, willing to be married to other people, and she was just in the sidelines, you know, hate writing through Lady Whistledown to quote unquote save his life and save Eloise's life, hence the rift between her and Penn. And so I feel like they missed an opportunity to warm us up again on establishing the relationship. But I guess in some ways they were shown as a lack of, because she was pissed off at him, right? he completely embarrassed her by claiming that he wouldn't even dream of courting Penelope Featherington, and he didn't know she knew that, right? So in some ways, yes, they were apart, but the pacing, as you said, was just not ideal. Let's talk about the glow up, okay? Because speaking of where they start off, they got Colin shirtless and tanned, you know what I mean? And with his hair swooped to the side. Penelope, however, did not get her glow up right away. We had a wonderful Cinderella moment where she decided to switch things up, and we'll get there. But let's talk about our feelings towards Colin Bridgerton. He is the third son, the adventurer out of the group, and I kind of know him as the kind one, really, out of all of them, because we knew Antony to be a rake. We knew Benedict to be the artist. And, you know, Gregory was the baby. Like, what was your impressions of Mr. World Traveler Colin Bridgerton?
I think this actor in real life, when I've seen him in the photo ops, I've seen him on the press tour, it's a very handsome man. Love the beard, love the do in real life. On the show, Colin does nothing for me. I'm so sorry. The longing, the suave moves he's supposed to have when he comes back does absolutely nothing for me.
No, I agree wholeheartedly, but I think they were trying to play into this veneer, right, that he shaped from his world travels. And Penelope saw right through it. And she talked about it in Lady Whistledown. It's like, yeah, he think he's cute and all, but does he know who he is? Because you ain't fooling me. I can agree with you, Ashley. He looked fabulous during the press tour. And he had moments within the show that I was like, oh, he's really handsome. But the other reason why this season didn't get the highest score for me is I felt like there was a lot of panting and a lot of
longing looks,
a lot of longing,
lingering stares.
And it just didn't really translate really well because, again, I feel like we missed out on build-up again. And his swagger was very cringeworthy. It was very, the winking, and then
oh, gosh.
Every time, Ashley, every time he was at the whorehouse, I'm just like, I don't want to see him being a hoe. Like, I don't need it.
Either.
And I think that was a choice that they made. And it's like, you can allude to a man having sexual prowess without putting him in a whorehouse. Like,
I think it's also such a discrepancy between the male and the female characters that obviously was probably a thing of that era, but in modern times is annoying to watch. Like, oh, he's going and hoeing with literal prostitutes and she's a virgin. Like,
right.
She ain't never even been kissed.
Listen. And they don't allude to him whoring around in the books. And I think what's also interesting is they probably didn't have to do that because in the books, it was more in the future. So his character was like 30 years old and Penelope was like 28, and a bona fide spinster. So with her in the series, they're alluding to her being a spinster. I think they said that she was 3 seasons out with no prospects, and she's living at home. Mama Featherington is out here trying to get her daughters pregnant because they need an heir for the estate. And if they don't have one, they are going to get kicked out. I have to say, the Featheringtons arc in this season did a lot for me because they were the family I never really cared for. Like, I just felt like it was giving Cinderella stepsister vibes, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Every time the story was on them, I just like, okay, well, let's go back to Cantony, like, you know what I mean? But in this season there were some moments that I truly enjoyed.
Well, because they're the hustlers, right? Like the Bridgertons are kind of the fairy tale family. Featherston's across the street are hustlers, baby. They
That
got to
is
make it
true.
work.
That's true. They know what it's like to go hungry, and it's like, we never again, never again. I have to say, the whole storyline about the Monrich family, that's the boxer that we meet in season 1. We meet his beautiful wife and their children. They own a bar that competes with White's, which is a famous gentleman's club at the time. He opens up his own bar. It's his pride and joy. And we find out that the wife's aunt has died. There's no male heirs except for her son, and he becomes the Baron of Kent. I love Black people and them not having drama, but I didn't like their storyline, Ashley. And honestly, it took me watching it a second time to say, like, well, maybe they are the quote unquote cautionary tale that the Featheringtons are trying to avoid with not having a male heir, having it go, scour the lineage to find someone to give the estate to. What did you think about their storyline?
I loved it. Black people,
You loved
wealthy.
it?
Let's go.
Yeah. Okay, I'm
Absolutely.
not trying to be a hater. Obviously, I love Black people being fabulous, but I just was like, I don't know. I wish there was a stronger storyline with them. That's pretty much what I'm trying to allude to.
I get it. I was like, I love that we're not the ones struggling. Like, I love that we inherited this wealth. We about to be beautiful. We about to be rich. We about to be
Yes.
elegante. We about to sit back and chill. I loved that. And especially now that we saw Queen Charlotte, right? This is probably the second generation of Black people that are going to be able to keep this level of wealth and title. I respected and appreciated that, right? Like, at least it's going to continue on amongst the Blacks of the time. So I loved it. And his wife this season, fabulous.
Gorgeous. Yes. Of course, with this being the social season, there's so many balls and banquets. In episode 1, Mother Featherington told Penelope, "Oh, I'm so happy you'll be with me and you'll take care of me always." And literally, shortly after she said that, Penelope went to the Modista and was like, "I need a glow up. I need to find a husband. All I need is for him to be kind."
I ain't trying to live with this lady for the rest of my life.
For the rest of my life. Oh my gosh, that had me cracking up. And what I do love is that she had her Cinderella moment. And we quickly find out that she does not have the swag to go with her look. Oh, Ashley, it was so painful watching her interact with people.
It was funny too, though, because you realize, and they don't often show that in like the story. No, they do. They do. Because even like Princess Diaries, even though she got the makeover and her hair was fabulous, she was still awkward and she was still, who she's always been.
You know what I'm thinking of? Miss Congeniality, when she was
when
looking
she trips and
fierce and she falls.
That, of all of the makeovers that I have seen, was the most fabulous. The
Absolutely.
hair, the dress, the
body.
walk.
Yes.
I mean, shut it down. Mr. Vic, nice work. Ouch.
But we also have to remember she had the Benjamin as her love interest too, which helped a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that it was comical because, again, just because you get beautiful on the outside doesn't stop who you are on the inside. And Penelope is used to being a wallflower, literally used to being ignored, used to being in the shadows. So she's never had to really try to have charm and have all these things, and now this attention is on her because physically she has turned into this butterfly and pulled her hair down and straightened it. That's the main things, right?
Exactly.
And so now it's like, who are you?
Wearing colors that actually matches her skin tone, because what was going on before was atrocious.
All I can say is if they let Nicola be Nicola, shut it down.
Shut it down. let's talk about the relationship between Eloise and Cressida. They are truly an unlikely pair, considering Eloise should know good and darn well why Cressida is not a friend. But somehow they found some commonalities and they're each other's friends during these balls trying to find a husband. But Cressida felt like she not just her felt, she was pressured into wanting to find a husband. Why do you think it was so hard for her to find one? Because she has always been truly beautiful on the outside. We know very quickly that the inside needs some tuning up. It needs a Cinderella moment itself. But I always thought it was interesting. Like, why couldn't she find a man?
They never made that clear as to why Cressida was still on the marriage market, right? Maybe it was the prospects that were being pushed her way that were the issue more than anything. Because I don't think her reputation was bad amongst men in the
Right.
time. So they didn't
Right.
explicitly say, but clearly, you know, she was set up to be this villainous character. So we're just supposed to assume, I guess, that her toxicity was why she was not at getting what she had hoped for. Probably scheming and manipulating and doing whatever.
Right. In the books, she does get married off. So this is an entirely like new storyline. And honestly, there isn't a rift between Penn and Eloise in the books either, because Colin actually finds out who Whistledown is and he tries to find ways to protect her because there is a competition to find her. So that is something that does happen in the books. And then when it comes to Eloise, we see a notable change in her as well. Like, I feel like she also matured in terms of her looks. Colin comes back and he talks about, like, oh my goodness, I got this book for you. And she's like, I now read fiction. And he's like, what's that all about? You know, Scandal softened her up a little bit, Ashley. What did you think?
Sure, but at the same time, Eloise got on my nerves this season.
Listen,
Eloise was too much trying to be a
listen.
Girl Scout for me. I'm gonna need you to settle down.
First of all, I'm just gonna say this now. She was the biggest hater, the biggest hater on multiple fronts.
I think we talked about this offline, but I guess I'll say this now. I don't see why this was so scandalous. Maybe it's because of the era we live in now where gossip is a dime a dozen and we have all these media outlets and all these things and is a norm of society. The way that they come for Penelope being Lady Whistledown made no sense to me. I was like, y'all are making a mountain out of a molehill. I don't understand. It's not like y'all were singled out. She talked about everyone, including herself and her own family. So why is it this deep?
People hate when people tell them about themselves because we have to remember Lady Whistledown is cheeky, okay? Like, she be playing in their faces.
But like, if anything, I'd be like, girl, good for you. Glad that you found your voice. And what are we going to do with this power? You know what I'm saying? Like, Eloise just kind of took it the wrong way for me.
But I felt like her evolution this season was a bit desperate with her with Cressida. Like, unless she purposely did it to hurt Penelope, what do you think?
I think it made her feel lost because I think she's always been a character who had a very strong compass and like a very strong set of like personality traits and values to a certain extent. And again, maybe this is a part of that. And that's what I don't like is like, you need to know when to like calm down and like change your position
Right.
a little bit and soften up a little bit.
Right.
But for sure, she was one of my least favorite characters in this particular season. Again, I still fuck with Eloise because as a woman of the time,
Same.
she did
Yeah.
her, she's going against the grain, and I respect
Yep.
that. But her character this season was an annoyance more than anything for me. And the whole Cressida friendship, you ain't got no other friends? Penelope was your only friend.
There was no one else. Like, it don't make any sense to me.
Yo, mama has the best taste in characters and friends. Lady Danbury is her BFF.
Exactly.
So, be friends with your siblings. I don't know, I don't know what to tell you over Cressida. Even though Cressida is not the villain for me that other people think she is, but we can get there.
Yeah. I actually do have in my notes, I didn't actually hate her that much this season at this point,
No.
specifically speaking to part one. But going back to Penelope and Colin, they had to reconcile. He apologized for what he said. She forgave him. And he pretty much was like, charm can be taught and let me teach you. I'm like, oh, you trying to teach her a few things? I see you out here. He was like, aren't we friends? Solidifying their friendship once again.
Question for you. Was it unhealthy for Penelope to maintain such a close friendship with him, giving her
obsession,
extreme feelings? Was that healthy?
When you are so attracted to something, you want to keep it close because you want to know, you want to keep tabs on it. So I think that was her way of still being a part of his life. Now, was that healthy? Girl, I don't know. People do crazy things in love. Okay. I don't know.
Sure.
So yeah, one of their lessons between Penelope and Colin happens at their house because she once told him that she felt most comfortable there. There, she finds his writing, which is really important because I put in my notes, game recognized game, journal of his travels. And she takes care of his hand because, something happens, of course, the glass broke. But I feel like the show was trying to say this was the first time there might have been something special. Again, with the heavy breathing, he saw the cleavage. One of the things that he said to her in their makeup was like, you always wrote to me, you always made me feel important. I feel like her taking care of him in that moment really helped solidify that as well. Do you feel like that was the beginning of their budding romance for you? Or if it wasn't, what was?
What's interesting is I didn't think about it like that at the time, but sure. I mean, I think it was somehow like illuminating parts of them that I guess they hadn't known before, which is curious because they've been such good friends. I found it when I'm thinking it through, it's interesting that he never shared his writing to a real extent before.
Yeah.
But sure, I mean, I think it's supposed to offer like a level of intimacy that maybe they haven't had before.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite lines in the series was between a conversation of Mama Featherington talking to her daughters, the married ones, on having these babies. And the question came up, insert himself where? They were like, what do you do? And she's like, we do some kisses. He changes his pants. They were fooling Ashley this season. They were fooling. But I think that's what's always so fascinating about this series, courtesy of season one. These women were truly in the dark.
Whose responsibility was it to teach them the birds and the bees? Their parents?
The night before they went, and I'm thinking about my big fat Greek wedding when her mom comes and talked to her about women being tigers. That's one of my favorite movies. Do you know that part?
I'm trying to think back. It's been a while since I've seen the first one.
And I'm like, she was like, Mom, I'm 30 something. I'm getting married.
I've done
tomorrow.
This before. Even Queen Charlotte, Lady Danbury had to draw.
Yes. She was like, bring the coal and the paper. She was like, how many times does he need to insert himself? I don't like it when my head hits the wall.
Are there ways to avoid that? Yes, there are ways to avoid that. Can I just say again, he ruined it for all the rest of these dudes.
Truly, in a lot of the conversation, as I mentioned before, where they were really trying hard this season to make Colin a sexual being, there was a conversation online that was like, you don't have to be so overt about it because King George, they alluded to it, like him being a king, you assume that he has experience, and the way they did it was so classy in terms of, she's like, there's a lot of buttons, and he's like, I'm good with buttons. I'm like, yes, you are.
Let's be for real. Corey and India had great chemistry. And their romance, even when it was hatred at one point, was passionate. You know what I mean? Like,
really?
and
What
he
was
was
it?
that first time was
Tuesdays?
just, yeah, even
Or
days.
second day, even
days.
Yeah.
And just the first time and the way he set it up for her. I mean, it was just, he ruined it for all these other dudes. It's like, none of the rest of y'all stand a chance.
Truly. I kind of want to talk about that really quick because with the press tour, especially with these shows, there's a lot when it comes to them selling the show. The whole are they, aren't they? Like they're taking a page out of Dancing with the Stars, right? The partners and, and the celebrities, and frankly, other Shonda Rhimes shows, i.e., Scandal. To this day, Carrie and Tony's chemistry is concerning for me if I were their spouse. Like, it's concerning. I didn't feel it though. Because when it came to Corey and India, their chemistry in the press run was a lot of fun to watch, and they really truly sold it. I feel like Nicola did a lot of the heavy lifting for this press run compared to Colin as well, or Luke. And that's where I kind of feel like I couldn't get into it either with their characters, because as soon as the show drops, everybody was like, oh my goodness, they're holding hands. Oh my goodness, they have good chemistry. And again, I think it was all Nicola. The day that night the show drops, he's out holding hands with his girlfriend. I'm not saying that he's not allowed to have a life. However, you are trying to sell a show, sir. Are you afraid to be attached to a plus size woman? Because that's another important key about this season too, is a full figure representation.
I saw the picture of him with this other woman that he's dating, and I was like, so no one taught you the art of what you're supposed to do when you are the lead of a romance,
girl.
From R&B singers who you never knew the status of their relationships, i.e. Usher back in the day.
Yep.
To every romantic comedy where someone is not either had a long-term relationship or married, you want to fall into the fantasy that they might be together. So Netflix, y'all need to roll back some of that money y'all gave him because he was playing with y'all.
But at least need to have it in a contract, like wait a month or something.
Yeah, but I want to say this too, because I know one of the things people are upset about is that his girl is small, is thin. And again, he's supposed to be dating a plus size woman. Nicola, for me, is not a plus size woman. Like, I find it so fascinating that is so like out here. I don't know what I consider a plus size. So I'm like, she just looks like a woman. Like, she's just a voluptuous woman.
She looks like freaking Venus out of the freaking, what's that famous painting? Like, she looks like,
she just looks like a voluptuous woman. I was like, she just got a little hip, she got some boobs, she got an ass. That's it.
And some thighs.
She looked like a woman. Yeah, I was like, the whole thing too, where they were talking about like, what do they call them? Like whatever the saying was I sent to you, where they call them like different body type.
Girl, coupling. I had never heard like, that in my entire life.
Now, if we want to talk about one thing, it could be the height difference. Now, there's a height difference.
Truly.
But shape difference, when are men and women shaped the same? When?
That's actually rare. You know how many skinny kings are with full body women?
Yes.
That is a story as old as time.
Yes.
I think it's a cultural thing, Ashley. Like what we would consider overweight, our lighter counterparts would think otherwise. And I just find that to be really, really fascinating. I mean, I'm thinking about the Serena documentary. She had lost her sister and she came back and they were just talking about how she was overweight. I'm like, these people were so heinous to her in the media. But Serena's ass ain't going nowhere. I don't care if she's the smallest she has ever been. That thing is banging. Okay.
And Alexis ain't complaining. Okay.
Dude is happy. He is like, that is all mine. I am my wife's biggest fan. Oh my gosh. Well, The first ball after Colin gives his lessons to Penelope, the word somehow gets out that he's actually teaching her, and she is humiliated and terrified. He later sees her to check up on her to see how she was doing. And this is my favorite line in the series, in addition to insert where. She was like, will you kiss me? She's like, I could die. He was like, you're not going to die. She's like, it could, and it would kill me. And then he was like, you would be dead already. I do not wish to die without having been kissed. Oh, that exchange was darling to me, because I think it did a good job with showing their friendship. You know what I mean? That banter between the two of them. And girl, they kiss, and Colin is shooketh. I have to say, Ashley, I was confused on this. Like, can one kiss truly change your life?
In the books, in the movies, in the shows. I thought about this last night again as I was rewatching. I said, have I ever had a mind-blowing first kiss? No, because physical things take time to get good, in my opinion. So the first time is usually a little bit awkward. It's like, okay, we learning, we figuring it out. And then it starts to get good. You know what I'm saying? So the fact that Colin, who's been whoring around town, is shook by one little kiss.
By one virgin.
Baby. Okay, by one virgin. Okay, sure. If that's what we're supposed to believe.
Exactly. He out here having dreams about her and everything. I liked it though, because it is a callback to him like, I would never dream of courting Penelope Featherington. And it's like, sir, you were dreaming about her lips. They play up into the friendship situation when they meet under the willow tree. And she pretty much says, you know what? We can't continue on with these lessons. People are already talking about us. Whistledown wrote about it. I still want prospects. Okay. And we get one in Lord Doubling. He is a wilderness man. He only eats vegetables. I like him though. I like him. He's straightforward. I felt like his frankness was refreshing, and she was able to interact with him without any real pretense. What did you think about this love triangle, Ashley?
I definitely found Lord Doubling to be refreshing at first, because I was like, finally, a dude who's not, I don't know, almost pretentious. Like a lot of the guys were very like, you know, had their airs about them and what have you. And he just felt like a real down to earth dude, right? He had his passions and his things he was interested in, but it seemed like he valued and wanted more from a woman maybe than some of those other guys that she could have potentially dealt with did. So I liked him.
I did too. And he was turning out to be the bachelor of the season, because Cressida, as I mentioned before, was under pressure, and she had her eyes set on him as well. There's this hot air balloon event at the Ton that was very interesting. I don't know. I felt like this episode was pretty peculiar. You know what I mean? Like they really played up. It was a little campy for me with like the winds. It was a windy day, and Colin.
It was very Wizard of Oz. It was
Wizard of Oz, right? Mm-hmm. Again, a whole lot of longing looks between Penelope and Colin, especially eating that cake. Fun fact: that cake was a callback to season 1 when.
Oh, not to Marie Antoinette. Let them eat cake.
Close. So in season 1, Penelope's conversation with Marina Thompson, she asked her, like, how did you get this affliction? Meaning the cake, like getting pregnant. She's like, with cake. And so the fact that Penelope was eating cake and licking her fingers, and Colin was like, I want to know what that tastes like. That was doing a lot. I was like, oh, he is hurting for her, apparently. All of the events going on around Penn and Penelope. Francesca is out here like, you know what? I just want somebody nice and somebody I can hang out with. And her mom was like, that's it? Like, you don't want more out of a relationship? Like on her debut day, she was like, it's just another day. She ultimately ends up being the diamond of the season, you know, being the sparkle in the queen's eye because of her talent in terms of the piano forte. But I think it's really interesting because there's a lot of conversations that she's autistic coded, Ashley, or like with, you know, being really brilliant and focused on her craft and wanting to be a bit removed from a lot of the loud extroverted family, and especially when she found her silent king in Lord John Sterling, how they just literally sit in silence and she had the best time. I thought that was an interesting take. What was your impression?
Yeah, I didn't necessarily get that she was on the spectrum from all of that. I just found it more of like she comes from one of 50, 11 kids, and sometimes you just need a little time to yourself. And she, values her peace, values some calm, values some alone time. I mean, if anything, she's just an introvert, right? And she just needs
Yeah,
to replenish her energy differently than maybe some of her siblings do who are more extroverted. So I didn't take it that way, but I loved Francesca as a character. Again, because I like that she diverts from the norm of the rest of the family a bit and what that means and looks like for her. Inevitably, I like that she wasn't afraid to make decisions, even if it was against possibly what the queen wanted. And so I respected her for that.
absolutely. In the process, this episode as well showed us Mama Bridgerton meeting a tall, dark, and handsome fella, Lord Anderson, which we quickly find out is Lady Danbury's brother that she has zero time for. And Benedict meets a mysterious widow in Lady Arnold. All right, in this final episode of part 1, episode 4, uh a lot happens. Lord Dublin is smitten by a pen, so much so that he out here talking about what happened if I hypothetically ask you to marry me. Who do I ask? Specifically speaking to that library visit, it was Beauty and the Beast coded for me, by the way. Her love of books and her being excited.
I never wanted a
But
home library more than
I
watching Beauty and the
know.
Beast.
First of all,
Gorgeous.
it's a fun fact. It's inspired by a real life library in Germany. It has a name. I don't know it offhand, but I definitely want to visit. I love libraries and museums. So Penelope is doing the darn thing, Ashley. She got a whole entire prospect. In their conversations, she also talked about, like, you know, looking out the window and wanting more out of her life. And Lord Dublin, I was rooting for him until he said, you know what, I'm gonna be gone for 3 years and I need my woman to take care of my house. In some ways it would have been a great match, right? Because she can maintain her autonomy, especially in her extracurricular activities. Whistledown, right? But she wants love. She wants love. Ashley, what do you think about this agreement?
If only he had been interested in Eloise. I feel like this would have been right up Eloise alley. Like, yes, go on, do what you gotta do, sir. I'm about to handle myself and do what it is I need to do, and I will be run the household. For Penelope, I mean, you could already tell she was settling. For
Yeah,
her, this was settling. She loves Colin. Colin has her hurt. She be sitting at the window watching this man live his life.
girl.
She is the woman in the window. You remember that movie?
Yes.
Or that
Yes.
series? Was it a movie or a series? Movie.
It was a movie.
Yeah.
Amy Adams. Check out that recap, y'all. That's like first year.
Yeah. But then there was a spoof that Kristen that's married to Dax Shepard. You know who I'm talking about, though.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Let
There
it
was
go.
a spoof of like the woman in the window, something, something, something that was on Netflix too. It was utterly ridiculous. But anyway, she was obsessed with Colin. Her heart was still with Colin. She had just made her peace that wasn't going to work out. So she was going to settle for this relationship. So no, it wasn't ultimately what she wanted, but was it going to be better to her than living with her mama for the rest of her life? I'd say so.
Speaking of her mama, let's talk about this motherly advice. Sis was like, at the library, she was like, play dumb. I was like, the fact that that was her go to advice, and more importantly, her 101, she was like, don't tell me you are holding out for love. She's like, that's why I didn't want you reading all those books. She's like, you know what is romantic? Security. And I'm not gonna lie, I was like, amen, sis. Amen.
This is, to your point, this is why I like the focus on the Featheringtons, because again, we get this very romanticized version of life from the Bridgertons. They all have been so lucky in love, starting from mommy and daddy, who had a love match, and that is not the norm of the era. So give me a woman who had to get it out the mud. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
That is a perspective. Now, am I saying that is the right perspective? That worked for her. Does not necessarily mean it should work for her children, because we're now in another era of time. Yes. But I enjoy seeing what her perspective would be based off of the life she's had to live.
Speaking of Francesca and Lord John Sterling, the Earl of Kilmartin, they ran into each other during a walk in the market, and again, socially awkward. They are having a conversation, they're talking about music, and this man just leaves. And she is completely put off until during the ball that happens later on that evening, he gives her music written the way she said. I thought this was truly beautiful because it shows that he actually listened to her and understood her, which is wonderful foundation in a relationship, Ashley. So we also have going on during this particular ball, Colin losing his sugar honey iced tea, like throwing all the etiquette out the window. He heard through the grapevine that Lord Dublin was planning on proposing to Penelope, and he decides to crash the party and crash their dance. The interaction between Penn and Colin was so intense. Lord Dublin was like, there is something going on here, and I'm about to be gone for 3 years, and I need my wife not to be longing for her neighbor. I was crushed. I mean, it had to happen. But Ashley, do you blame Lord Dublin?
If there's one thing that man isn't, he ain't stupid. Okay? Because he spotted that so fast. Cressida didn't hardly have to say 2 words. And he's like, I know what this is. So this is who you've been, and this is another reason why he is going to be a good partner for whoever he ends up with. He barely knows her, but he's so observant of her behavior, where he said, this whole week I've noticed it seems like you were looking for somebody. You know what I'm saying? And usually those are the things you note about someone when you know them well, because you sense these things about them, right? And so for him to already be able to tell, like, so this is who you be looking out that window for, that man ain't stupid. So good for you, sir. Good for you.
Truly. Penelope is distraught. Like, her one and only prospect has slipped through her fingers, and she leaves the ball. And Colin goes running after. The infamous carriage scene is actually in the book. The setup is much different, though. They definitely have their very first connection in the carriage. And shout out to Pitbull and Neo, Give Me Everything. That song is like reaching the charts based off of Colin and his 2 fingers. So
I'm just cringe because I was not excited about it, but y'all do y'all thing.
And then the carriage ends. They laugh together. And he pretty much says, Penelope, are you going to marry me or not? Did you like this proposal?
That was the highlight of the first half of the season for me. I did like that because I remember I was like, I wasn't expecting for it to just be that abrupt coming off of this tete-a-tete in the carriage. I was like, oh, we for real now. Okay, let's get it. Let's do it. Because again, when you first are coming into this season, you're building up and you just don't know how their romance is going to inevitably play out. And I just didn't expect it to be like this. So I was
Yeah.
pleasantly surprised and excited for the second half when it ended like this.
Yes. To your point, this is the end of part one. We have a newly engaged couple. The rift between Penn and Eloise was not going anywhere. Cressida's still being a bitch. And there's rumblings on uncovering Lady Whistledown. Any final thoughts for part one, Ashley?
If they could have focused more on just pollen, pollen, what have you, I think I would have had a few more delightful moments sprinkled throughout this first half of season 3. But I was obviously down to continue the ride.
Yes, I have to say, I really enjoyed the engagement. That is in line with the books. I will say the carriage ride actually was after Colin follows her to her printers. She confessed who she was, and he is upset, and they are in the carriage, and he's like, "You're Whistledown," but they still make out. And then they leave the carriage, and they are engaged. And for the rest of the book, he's trying to find ways to conceal her identity. So I think it's interesting that they decided to go this route coming from a ball. Back to the Julia Quinn article I was referencing earlier, she said that she actually does not mind when people say the TV show is better than the book. She's like, I just love people, enjoying the content, whether it's the books or the shows. This is her most popular series, and she said it actually has always kept its momentum in terms of sales, so it never went away. But to have all the excitement around the show, she absolutely loves. I do want to ask you though, what do you think they're doing with Benedict, since we now know that he's going to be the star of season 4? All his different liaisons, do you think it's just providing us with like color of his character, so it'll probably make a big splash for season 4, or do you feel like they don't know what to do with him?
I think because he wasn't the lead of this season, they just needed something to do with his character to keep him interesting and keep the audience interested. One could have thought that this love interest, this woman that he was seeing in this season, could have been inevitably a love match. And then we get thrown the wrench of actually, I'm in my sexual exploration era. So,
Yeah, yeah,
I think it was just a way to prolong the inevitability of him finding his love match.
I agree. Well said. All right, Ashley, that's all we got for today. Time for hidden gems.
All right, so I have one hidden gem, and I actually already mentioned it last week. I just wanted to actually put the name out there for you guys to find, and that is a documentary on Amazon Prime called Power of the Dream. It is about the WNBA's journey, their activism, when it came to politics, and when it came to the Say Her Name movement. So I mentioned it last week. I just wanted to give you guys the title. Go out and check it out. It's a little over 2 hours, and it is very well done. That is my one hidden gem. What about you, Delora?
Thank you, Ashley. I have 2 hidden gems today. The first one is also on Amazon Prime. It's called My Lady Jane. It is very cheeky, it's very out there. It's a little bit older than Regency era London, but it is London nonetheless. There is aspects of things that you love from Bridgerton in terms of colorblind casting, but there's more of a magical flair to this particular series. It's essentially a retelling of Lady Jane of London, who was famously beheaded. Fun fact. But it's a lot of fun. I am in the middle of the season. It is rated PG 14. So there are, sexual interludes here and there, but a lot of fun. And then since we're talking about Regency era romance, I am going to give a book recommendation. I think I'm going to give more than one book recommendation just because why not? As I mentioned before, Stacy Reid is my favorite. I've given this as a hidden gem. I'm giving it again. The Wolf and the Wallflower. I read it again for my birthday because it's like my favorite Regency book. The other one, also that black author. So want to support. That's the one thing I do enjoy about romance books. It is women authors because like I just think it's very convenient that a lot of people like to throw the genre away. And I think a lot of it has to do with because it is centering women and women's stories written by women. So I'm like, so a lot of the other stuff can be very pretentious. The Duke Who Didn't, written by Courtney Milan. This one is a Regency era story that focuses on Asian people living in England. And the Duke in particular is half Chinese and half English. And it is, I have on my Goodreads, I have this book is the sweetest, cutest, most romantic, hilarious Regency book I've ever read. It truly is. And the audio book was a lot of fun. And my final recommendation is called Glory and the Master of Shadows. This is by Grace Callaway. Again, this one features Asian characters. Both of the previous authors, both Courtney and Grace, they're Asian women. I think one is Canadian, the other one is Asian American. And the fact that people are writing Regency books with other cultures, I thought was truly fascinating and a lot of fun. So that's all I got.
All right. Thank you. Guys, we appreciate you for sticking with us for Bridgerton Season 3, Part 1. We will be back with Part 2, of course. But please share this episode out with everybody you know. We love to hear your thoughts. We will be back. But as always, in the meantime, be blessed.